everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel. And as you can tell, I am pre-filming. I'm wearing the same clothes as you are going to be seeing in Friday's video, but I've got a very busy week coming up as usual. So I know you guys don't mind the pre-filming, but today is T1D with Maddie, episode number 6. And I told you guys it was going to be a really good one. And it's kind of ironic that Diabetic Danica, one of the top, in my opinion, top type 1 diabetes YouTubers, just made a video about good A1Cs and time in range and all this stuff. So today's video is, what do I believe is more important in the realms of your diabetes control? Having a good A1C and or your time in range. So first of all, both of these standards of judgment or standards of measurement for diabetics, particularly type 1 diabetics, are both important. For those of you that are newly diagnosed or have not seen my videos about specifically what an A1C is, you can feel free to go check them out. But basically, an A1C is a test that measures, that gives you an average blood sugar over a period of 2 to 3 months. It is marked in a percentage, which also correlates to an average blood sugar, meaning that average means what was your blood sugar sitting at. If they had to pick a single number value of what your blood sugar was sitting at, what would it be sitting at consistently? The higher your A1C level, the higher your risk of complications and the higher overall blood sugars you're having. The lower your A1C, the lower blood sugars you are having, or the more normal blood sugars you are having. So my A1C right now is 5.8%. Predicted to be a 5.7 or a 5.6 at my next appointment based upon Dexcom data, meter data, and what I've been seeing and what I've been analyzing. So that's very good level, and I'm having minimal lows, so that's really good beyond that. But you got to work your butt off to get an A1C like that. You just don't do things and let diabetes do what diabetes is going to do. You work at your blood sugar so that they don't go really high or really low, and knowing what different foods affect you, so on and so forth. Time in range means that how often are you spending time in a set target range? A lot of the American Diabetes Association and a lot of endocrinology offices believe 70 to 180 as your target range. I say 70 to 140 because those are more non-diabetic levels, but actually true non-diabetic levels are 70 to 120. But I give myself a little grace, and I believe 70 to 140, consistently maintaining that level as much as possible is really going to minimize your complication risk, really going to minimize how you're feeling in the moment. And as the tighter you keep your blood sugar in a tighter range, the more stable you're going to be. And I can't emphasize that enough. I've learned these tips and techniques from the Juicebox podcast, experience from you guys, experience that I've noticed in my own blood sugar trends, and this is what I've come to believe. I'm not picking on anybody's A1C for this video. I'm not picking on anybody's target blood sugars or target range, but just know that this is what I believe in for a target range. So your target range may be, from your doctor, 70 to 160. It may be 70 to 200. It may be 80 to 160. I do 70 to 140. Just in turn, you're also going to have different A1C goals that you may like. The ADA and most endocrinology offices will say less than 7%. To avoid possible diabetic complications. I believe in less than 6, and my eye doctor believes in less than 6.5%. So you're going to get different opinions from everybody. But like I said, they're both very important tools. So now that I've kind of explained what they are, how they're kind of set, what they mean, I'll dive into which one I think is more important. So like I said, I'm not A1C shaming anybody, nor am I target blood sugar shaming anybody. Everybody's going to manage their diabetes different and feel comfortable at different levels, or your body's going to respond differently at different blood sugar levels. So I believe that A1Cs aren't as critical as time in range. I think your time of range is more predicative of your risk of complications and how overall are you controlling your blood glucose levels. Because an A1C is an average. A1C, meaning average, means the mean. I took a statistics class in high school. The mean is the average of a bunch of data that has been collected through a CGM or finger pricks or in this case, when they're measuring your blood sugar, they're measuring, or your HbA1c, they're measuring how much sugar was coating your hemoglobin, which is red blood protein in your red blood cells. And the more sugar that you have coated in it, the higher the A1C. So A1Cs are a great tool, but however, they're not the best tool, and here's why. An average compiles, like I said, all different kinds of information. So if your blood sugars are on a roller coaster ride, meaning 300 down to 50, back up to 300, down to 50, if they're looking like a heartbeat machine where they're spiking and coming down, and they're low to high, low to high, low to high, and they're swinging and they're varying a lot, meaning that that standard deviation is probably high, excuse me, your A1C will still turn out okay, because you're having extreme highs and extreme lows, and they kind of cancel each other out and lead to an A1C of 150, of an average blood sugar of 150, which is like an A1C of 6.7 or something like that. I'm pulling numbers out of the top of my head. I know an A1C of 6.5 is an average blood sugar of 140, so I would imagine that an A1C correlating to a blood sugar of 150 would be just under 7, be about 6.7, 6.8. So you may have a really good A1C, but if you're looking at your Dexcom data or your meter and you're seeing you're consistently either high or low, it's going to make you look like you're controlling your blood sugar, but in reality you're not. You want to have stability first, even if that means that you will have stability at a blood sugar constantly at 200. That's not good, but as long as you're stable, that's amazing. And then just knowing how to increase your insulin or whatever it is, increase your exercise, doing whatever you need to do to continuously lower that to keep you more stable and steady, pre-bolus, and whatever the case may be. So A1Cs can be falsified because of variation in blood sugar. Whereas time and range gives you a better idea of how much % of the time are you between 70 and 180, between 70 and 160, between 70 and 140. I'll tell you right now, I would say most of the time, on a really bad week, I can be about 60% of the time between 70 and 140. On a really good week, I'm about 85% of the time between 70 and 140. My low blood sugar risk is less than 2%. The highest I've ever seen my risk of low blood sugar was 2%. And my high blood sugar, severe highs are minimal, like less than 1%. And my highs between 140 and 200 are about anywhere from 10 to 18%. That is my time in range. That is how I judge myself, along with standard deviation, to know, hey, how are you controlling your blood sugars? The higher your standard deviation, that means your blood sugars are fluctuating more, which can lead to a false A1C. But if your standard deviation is lowered and you have more stable blood sugars, it's going to reflect better in your time in range. And it's going to reflect better on your A1C. And obviously, if you're having tons of lows, your A1C, of course, is going to be low. But that doesn't mean you're properly taking care of your diabetes, because you don't want a lot of lows. Same with if your A1Cs are high, that means you're continuously having high blood sugar, and that means you're not properly taking care of diabetes or managing diabetes for your lifestyle. So my main thing would be to tell you is to stabilize your blood sugar first, so they're not oscillating so much. And then once you learn how to stabilize your stabilize your blood sugar numbers, then learn how to drop them into a target range that you feel comfortable at. If you're steady at 200, aim for a steady of 150. You get comfortable at 150, try aiming for a steady at 120. And if you're more steady and stable at healthier non-diabetic levels, it's going to reflect nicely on your A1C. Like I said, I have a 5.8 A1C. I am close to having a non-diabetic A1C with minimal lows and minimal drastic highs, because I know how much insulin I need. I'm not denying myself the insulin I need. I'm properly taking the amount of insulin I need for my food. I'm pre-bolusing, and I'm fixing lows and fixing highs that maybe I could prevent in the future. Like, obviously, if I'm going to go out and exercise and my blood sugar is dropping, I should either A, eat something, or B, decrease the amount of insulin I'm going to take so that I don't go low. Or if I see I'm trending up, say my blood sugar is 160 with a straight arrow headed up. Okay, Maddie, you missed big time. Dose yourself now before that 160 turns into 250. It is so much easier to bring down a blood sugar of 160 than it is to bring down a blood sugar of 250. Because you need less insulin to bring down a slightly elevated blood sugar. And if you're using less insulin to bring down a slightly elevated blood sugar, you're going to go down, but you're not going to crash and burn. So that is my 2 cents on A1Cs versus time in range. The time in range is so much more important. And keep in mind, everybody's going to have different standards for A1Cs and time in range. So, like I said, I'm not A1C shaming anybody. But just because I think that time in range is more important doesn't mean that I also don't think A1Cs are important. A1Cs are extremely important. Because the higher you are, the more likely you are to end up with diabetic complications in the future. The healthier it is, or the closer to non-diabetic that you can get, great. Like I said, a non-diabetic's A1C is 4.0 to 5.6. And if you can obtain that, that's what I'm shooting for. If you can obtain that with minimal lows and correcting your highs before they get dangerously high, good for you. Because that will ultimately cut your diabetes complications practically down to nothing. Because non-diabetics are not going to get diabetic complications because they have good A1Cs. But I will say this, if you are at a high A1C, you can get it down. You just need to figure out what tools are going to help you get that down. And do understand that as you lower your A1C, you may not go from an 11 overnight to a 5.8 like me, but you may go from an 11 to a 9. That is a huge accomplishment. Be proud of yourself because you've just cut your risk of diabetes complications down by a lot. Now that you're at a 9, okay, what did I do to get down to a 9? Now what can I do even more? I want to go down to a 7.5 next. Okay, great. Now I reached that goal. I'm almost at I want to be at a 6.5. If that's your goal, fantastic. Shoot for it and keep shooting for it. And then once you learn how to get your A1C down to the level you want, maintain it. Pretty much right now, I'm in the maintenance stage. However, I want to drop it just a little more. But I've been fighting a lot of highs because of transitioning to an insulin pump. And I had an illness over this past period of my A1C period. I've had other things happen. I had a close family friend die. That wasn't good for my blood sugars. And I've just learned to accept that high blood sugars are going to be part of diabetes, but they don't have to constantly be there. They don't have to define you. But I definitely, like I said, look at time and range first, then your A1C. Like I said, I'm not A1C shaming anybody, but there are ways to lower your A1C. There is ways to tighten your time and range, and it just takes time, and it takes adaptation, and it takes manipulation of the tools you use to manage your condition to better get this. I gave you guys tips, like 2 different videos I made much earlier this year about how to maintain good A1Cs. I hope to be talking about in the future how to maintain good A1Cs and stable blood sugars, but I hope to go in depth about talking about how I learned these tips from the Juicebox podcast and reiterate what he says. I kind of reiterated some of that today with saying, like, if you can aim for stable blood sugars first and then learning how to drop them to reasonable levels, that's huge. Your body likes stable blood sugars or less roller coasters. So if you can minimize your roller coasters first and then learn to lower those stability lines, drop from a 200 to a 180 to a 150 to a 120 or whatever level you're comfortable at, so that you can ultimately achieve healthier blood sugars, which is going to lead to healthier bodies, a healthier you, a happier you, and a less likelihood for complications. Diabetic Danica, I kind of take her, I definitely feel like my opinion mirrors hers more. However, like I said, I have a different value on A1Cs being less than 6. But that's just like my standard. It doesn't mean I'm 100% what you believe in, and that's okay. My eye doctor says less than 6.5. The ADA says less than 7. I definitely would shoot for the under 7 part if you really want to get rid of all your complications. And Diabetic Danica did mention a study saying that getting under that 7 bar, if you can maintain under that below 7% A1C consistently for a lot of your life, you're pretty much going to have minimal complications, if any. And after that point, it's just a matter of, do you really want non-diabetic A1Cs or just slightly elevated A1Cs? What you feel comfortable with, your hypo-awareness, or if you're hypo-unaware, because obviously if you can't feel low blood sugars, they're probably going to set a higher A1C target for you because they don't want you having lows that you can't feel and then passing out and potentially dying from them. So take what I've said and put it into your own away and manipulate it into your own life, because everybody's going to have a different opinion on this, but I definitely feel like a time and range is so much more important, because it really gives an accurate picture of, okay, how often am I going high? And when you think of percentages, think of them as out of 100. So how often, out of 100 times a week, am I going above 180, if that's your range? If that's minimal, good for you. And how often am I going below 70? On a weekly basis out of 100 times. If I was to test 100 times, how often is that blood sugar low? Minimal. Good for you. Because then you're keeping that range you want. And then once you learn how to keep yourself in that range, you can learn to manipulate things and slowly drop them levels to levels that are more non-diabetic, or levels that you want, etc., etc. So I really do take the side of Diabetic Danica on this one. Time and range is more important than A1C. However, A1Cs are still important. And for me, like me wanting to keep them under 6, I'm actually doing that because I want to have kids in the future. I'm not dating anybody right now. I'm obviously not going to have kids right now. I'm 20 years old in college. However, that is the standard for pregnancy. And if I can maintain an A1C under 6 leading up to wanting to become pregnant, I don't have to worry about preventing pregnancy. I can get pregnant right away. If I get married or want kids, I can do that and not feel strained about that. So that's kind of why I say under 6, just because I'm looking more to the future for myself and the sake of my kids and the sake of my pregnancies in the future that I may have. Who knows where my life's going to take me? I may never get married, but I'm anticipating in the future starting a family, or maybe that's kind of something I want to have. So I guess for me, like, taking care of myself now, I'm going to be able to stay healthy for my future family, for the family I have now, for the friends I have now, and I'm going to feel better in the long run. So that's why I say less than 6 for A1Cs, but make your own standards, follow your doctor's guidelines, learn from other people like me and other people that have different inputs on this, because their A1Cs can fluctuate a lot. I mean, you could go back and forth from an A1C of 8.1 and then get it down to 6, and then you have really bad, you had something happen to you and it went up. Okay, it went up, but it's temporary. You can always get that back down. Same with your time and range. You guys saw on my glucose account, there was one week that I was 70% in range. I had a lot more highs, but I looked at it as a learning curve, and oh, I was really stressed that week. That makes sense why I was a little higher. But the next week I had a lot less stress, or I felt more relaxed, or I did a better job at bolusing, and that's why my A1C, or not my A1C, that my time and range increased. So there's many different ways to look at this. Excuse me, these allergies are killing me. There's many different ways to look at things. So the main thing is, do your own research, find what works for you, listen to other people's advice too. Take what I'm saying and put it in your own way so that you can better get the blood sugars that you want and get the target sets that you want for yourself. I will leave links to Diabetic Danica's video down below, information on A1Cs, time and range, and different standards and guidelines that I've learned from the Juicebox podcast. I'll link the Juicebox podcast down below too. Great resource for any type 1 diabetic. So I hope you enjoyed T1D with Maddie, episode number 6. It was a pretty good one, I think. As always, if you have suggestions for me about controversial topics that revolve around type 1 diabetes that are hard to talk about, or that are debatable, or what do I think is better for this or for that, always feel free to leave video suggestions for me down below. I just may choose your topic to talk about in another video. So, until next time for T1D with Maddie episode 7, that will premiere on July 1st, 2019. Take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Stay tuned for tomorrow. We are going to be sitting down and discussing basal testing, the scientific foundation, what it's about, how to do it, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and all those fun things. So I will see you tomorrow for another video. Bye, everyone.